Well, that was your classic fuck around and find out game. Um, Not fun. Not a real fun night as the Knicks head to Dallas and see their 5-game winning streak and first loss since the OG Anunoby trade. Uh, lots to dig into for this game. I think, uh, and we can talk about a lot of player performances or a lot of underwhelming player performances. I'm not really sure if there was one player that I would say had a truly good game. I mean, I know Julius Randle ended up with a nice stat line, had a third quarter, run there where he went unconscious for a bit, but other than maybe DiVincenzo, I wouldn't say that any Nick had a particularly good game. Listen, uh, there are teams in the league that you could come out with that level of effort and engagement and you know attention to detail, like giving a little bit extra, or rather not giving a little bit extra, and just kind of lollygagging your way through it. A team with Kyrie Irving is not one of them. And listen, like the Mavs, they get shit on a lot for various reasons, but like they are like I know they tanked last season at the end of it, and things went like horribly awry. Like they do kind of have a track record of being at least, even when they're missing guys, like being a competent NBA team. And again, if you have Irving on the floor, and Irving ended up with 40 whatever points. To me, the most important points he scored in the entire game were the first 8 that he scored, and it was when early in the first quarter, and I think it put the Knicks down 15-4. His 8 early points. The dude ended up with 44 because he's one of the, I don't know, 20 or 25 greatest pure scorers in the history of the league. Like, you just can't come out on the road with that level of effort and energy against a team with that dude, to say nothing of a team that has another guy in Tim Hardaway Jr., who, look, he'll do Timmy things every game. And we saw it on the last meaningful possession of this game where he took 2 threes that he probably shouldn't have taken either of them. And missed both. But like, we've seen enough of Timmy in Dallas and in New York to know that on any given night, he could be the third or fourth best player on a court, regardless of who else is on that court. And tonight, he was filling it up from deep, and he was making enough happen. And then when you combine all that, and here's the thing, like obviously you'll take Luka 10 times out of 10. You never want Luka to sit down, but the one thing the Mavs did get more of without Luka was they got more defense, they got more energy, they got more spirit across the lineup. Like Derrick Jones Jr., Dwight Powell, Josh Green. What the fuck do you think these guys are going to go out there and do? Because they're not, like, they have to make up for their lack of skill in some ways, and they're going to make up for it with effort and energy and defense. And it showed. I honestly thought, for as great as an offensive start as the Mavs got out to, and what they score 44 points or 46 points in the first quarter, whatever it was, I thought their defense was like equally as impressive. Really, really getting into what the Knicks were trying to do. They clearly had game planned this game very well. All the credit to them. Like, they came out and they set the tone. They won this game. I would say as much as, if not more than, the Knicks lost it. And yeah, like Grant Williams coming in doing Grant Williams things, like Jaden Hardy only 2 for 8, but like kind of put a little pressure on the defense in his own way. And that's really the frustrating part, is like with all the guys the Mavs had out, they won this game with 7 guys. Seth Curry played 10 minutes, took 1 shot, missed it. I forget which, not Mook Morris, the other Morris twin, played 4 minutes. Like, they won with 7 guys. And that can't happen, especially when 2 of those guys are Derrick Jones Jr. and Dwight Powell, who are non-threats on the offensive end. So, like, it was essentially Kyrie, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, who had an amazing first quarter, really put some pressure on the and that was it. And that's all the offense they needed, because the Knicks did not come out with the requisite level of effort and energy that they needed. And they got down by 18 points in the first quarter. And guess what? We turned around, and it was early in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes to go, and they were still down 18 points. Because once they woke up, it was enough of a back and forth thing, and the Mavs made enough shots. And that was really the other differentiator in the game, because the effort and the energy is what got the Knicks down, as well as some hot shooting by the Mavs early. But the Mavs shooting never really cooled down. I wrote it down. There were two areas that this game was lost, and then a third late, but we'll get to that in a moment. Going into the fourth quarter, Dallas was 14 of 31 on threes. The Knicks were 9 of 32. That's 15 points right there. Guess what? The Knicks were down 15 going into the fourth. And then the stat that absolutely just jumped out at you, and I haven't even checked what the final numbers were for this particular stat that I'm going to read. Going into the fourth, Mavericks, 25 fast break points. Knicks, 1. One fast break point. And, it's a little bit deceiving because when the Knicks got the lead down to 6 in the third quarter behind Julius Randle's barrage, they started playing a little faster. Just like in the second quarter when they cut the lead down to 10 in the second quarter, they started playing faster. So any good thing the Knicks did in this game, it was because they started playing faster. Even so, only one fast break point before the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, the defense kind of finally showed up. Didn't allow any fast break points for the Mavs in the fourth quarter. They got 5. And obviously got the lead all the way down to 1. And that's when, on the biggest possession of the game, and that's where, again, fuck around and find out. You need to expend so much energy to get back in a game when you get down by 20 on the road against an offense that, because of one dude, because he's so good, really does put pressure on you. You expend a lot of energy coming back, and they just didn't. I rewatched the possession. Once I think it was 3 offensive rebounds on the same possession. I thought Julius had an opportunity for the final rebound that corralled out. I thought that was Julius's ball, and just didn't really go for it. But I'm not going to put that all on him. I mean, it's 3 offensive rebounds on the same possession. It's not on one guy. It's on everybody. So yeah, that was really discouraging, and it was fitting. It was fitting because the Mavs played with more energy all game, and it's fitting that they won the game on a possession because they had more energy than the Knicks. They deserve to win the game, absolutely. Even though the Knicks are a better team without playing a Mavs team without Luka Doncic. They might be a better team even playing a Mavs team with Luka Doncic, but certainly didn't show it tonight at all. Not even one iota. So it is amazing how one loss can make the good vibes of a 5-game winning streak and a trade that has worked out very well so far just kind of, go down the toilet. Look, games like this happen. Teams come out with this level of effort and energy. Sometimes it happens. I'm not going to sit here and kill them for it, but it is absolutely okay to be extraordinarily frustrated by this game. And this is also the first game that you could honestly look at and say, yeah, the Knicks would have been better off with Emmanuel Quickley. And maybe RJ Barrett too. But definitely Emmanuel Quickley to come in, change the energy around, because OG Anunoby, this was the first game we look at and be like, yeah, this was underwhelming. And look, he's a superstars have underwhelming games. Stars has underwhelming games. OG Anunoby is maybe the best role player in the NBA. He's certainly allowed to have underwhelming games, but they needed him tonight. And, Benji was all over this on Twitter. And this was partially on OG, the fact that he really was not doing much in terms of navigating screens, and they were just giving up those switches for Kyrie so easily throughout the night. But it was also I partially on Tibbs. I got to tell you, Tibbs going for his 500th win tonight, I would have gone on here and waxed poetic out the wazoo about Tom Thibodeau if they won this game and got him getting his 500th win. I thought that was a terrible decision to go so long with the single coverage of Kyrie when the Mavs, again, as Benji pointed out on Twitter, had some non-threatening offensive players on the floor. But more than that, I mean, I don't know. Are we still allowed to complain about minutes occasionally now that Emmanuel Quickley's not on the team, or was that reserved only for Quickley? I'll have to ask the I forget our PR guy's name. What's his name? Drew? I'll have to ask Drew. But Quentin Grimes, man, a lot of Knicks didn't bring energy tonight. Quentin Grimes brought energy, and Quentin Grimes, I thought, played well and played 15 minutes. Ended up hitting 3 of 6 from deep. Look, he's not perfect. He's never going to be perfect. You can pressure him. You can get him out of his game. We saw it a few times in the first half where he drove and doesn't even attempt a shot at the rim. it's not perfect, but I would like to see a little bit more Quentin Grimes tonight on a night when Josh Hart absolutely, like, the effort was there occasionally, but my God, was that a terrible Josh Hart game. Underwhelming OG Anunoby game. OG also didn't really, I know he had the one big corner three at the end there, but his shooting line for the game, it was the only three hit. 1 of 6 from 3, 4 of 10 overall. Like, kind of an underwhelming game from him. And yeah, so a little surprised we didn't see more Grimes tonight. I'll have that gripe. And then just looking at some of the other guys, DiVincenzo was awesome. I don't blame him at all for this. 5 of 10 from deep. The guy just is money from downtown. Randall and Brunson. It's amazing that you look up and Brunson had the stat line that he did 30 points on 22 shots. That is just about the emptiest 30 points on 22 shots you're ever going to see. And you guys know me. I am dismissive of a lot of players. And I've gotten into some hot water over that in recent weeks in terms of like my personal attachment. I'm a Brunson guy. First guy that I've been totally in on since the 90s. And he didn't have a good game. Like 30 points on 22 shots. I feel very comfortable saying he did not have a good game. I thought he got taken advantage of on defense. I thought some of his shot selection throughout the game was kind of poor. Got better as the game went on. Obviously got better as the game went on. But like this was an underwhelming Brunson performance. And Randall, like, yeah, he ended up with 32 points on 23 shots. The lack of effort early, like, all of those times where Clyde was making fun of that the Knicks had no one in the area code or the zip code or whatever he said, like those were Randall's guys in the corner. And granted, it's Derrick Jones Jr., for a few of them, and like part of their game plan, I'm sure, is to not guard Derrick Jones Jr. in the corner because he's Derrick Jones Jr. and that's why he's not a better player. He doesn't hit threes. But like, it's tough for me to sit here and praise Randall for that great third quarter when, again, he was part of the problem early. And listen, it's not fair always. It's not fair. There are nights where he comes out with the exact same level of effort and energy tonight, and he puts forth a similarly stunning offensive performance, and we look past it in a millisecond because the team did enough around him to mitigate the fact that he did not give enough. Tonight, they didn't, so it stands out more. Is that fair? Probably not. Like, should more be required of him when he's carrying such a big offensive load? I don't know. I mean, reasonable minds may differ. I don't really think there's a great answer to that conversation, but it stuck out more. Hardenstein, I know he had 15 rebounds. Again, whatever. He was some weird moment. So many weird moments. Like the 3-pointer to end what was it, the first quarter or the first half? I honestly forget. Where he just like kind of completely backed off. And yeah, at the last play of the first half to put the Knicks down 19 going into halftime. Like, why are you doing that? Like, Hart had a bunch of those plays too. Just weird game from guys that have been really rock solid, consistent for the Knicks for most of the season. And who did I not talk about? Oh, Deuce. I don't want to end on a sour note, but some rough Deuce minutes tonight. Again, in-game plus minus, a lot of times you could throw it right out. Did not think it was an accident that they were a minus 12 in the 9 minutes that Deuce played. Like those back-to-back possessions there early in the fourth quarter where he just does not initiate the offense in a timely fashion. That's on you, dude. I know you're really a wing in a point guard's body. You're playing point guard. That's like we've seen some great Deuce moments in the last 3-4 games. This was not a good one. This was not a good game from him. So really tough for me to sit here and praise any individual Knick, which is wild to say when this was a 1-point game with under a minute to go. And by any right, they should have gotten one of those rebounds and had a shot to take the lead and potentially win this game. You know what that says to me, though? That says to me the Knicks were a much more talented team and they lost, which is frustrating and is annoying and you don't love it. I mean, I guess the two big picture things, and then we'll go to the super chats. One, only the Knicks could figure out like they came off of what I described at the time, and I still feel pretty confident about, was the most heartbreaking regular season loss I've ever witnessed. The game in Dallas last year. What did the Knicks do this year? They're like, let's find a way to have a completely different type of loss, but have it like be the bizarro world version of that loss, and let's compare how much aggravation we can have our fans feeling after the game. Because in this game, that if you remember that game last year, the Knicks for 45, 46 minutes, we were as proud watching them, this shorthanded team playing with essentially 6 guys. It was the proudest night of the year for Knicks fans. And then it just all unraveled in the final minutes. But even after the way it unraveled and the way they lost, you looked up at the end and you're like, my God, the shame of it is they put forth that such a great effort. Tonight, even when they kept coming back, the effort like left so much to be desired. And despite that, they were right there at the end and they lost it. So a completely different type of loss from the Dallas game last year. Less painful, I guess, but like everything's relative. And then the only other thing I do want to say, and I mentioned his name earlier because, and it also fitting that tonight was a night Knicks could use some Manuel quickly to come in and right the ship and reset the tone and all that good stuff. Fitting because Emmanuel quickly penned what was a beautiful, I don't even want to call it a letter. It was really it was kind of like a story to Knicks fans, to really everybody who supported him and watched him over the last 3.5 years. But it was a letter to New York. And I thought it was pitch perfect. Really conveyed to me why so many people will continue to root for him in Toronto or wherever he goes, even though he's not a Knick anymore. Because, it wasn't just his play on the court that made lifetime fans, but it was his professionalism, it was his attitude, it was his joy. And I think as people watched him over the last several years, you can't fake that. You can't fake that level of joy. And I also don't think you could fake that sort of connection with a fan base. So wanted to get that out of the way before we got to super chats about this game, because it really was a beautiful letter. And so a lot of people saying a lot of nice things about it, all deserved today. So I wanted to say that up front. Okay. So we'll end the monologue on a high note before we get to the super chats. Starting with Mythic Monty. How you doing, Mythic Monty? Healthy scratch for Brogdon tonight. Eyes emoji. Interesting. I apologize because I'm not going to give the person credit because I really was not looking at my phone tonight. I was way too frustrated to look at the Substack chat tonight. Again, apologies, but I occasionally glance just to see what the conversation was about. And somebody mentioned something along the lines of there's way too many stretches of games since the trade where the offense just goes into the tank. Here's the thing. It's not always without Brunson on the floor. It's not always the Deuce-led backup units. In fact, in recent games, it has not been the Deuce-led backup units. Like the last game against Washington, is that who we played last game? No, Portland. Played last game. It was really the starters. And I think when you have only 2 shot creators on your team, which is all the Knicks have right now, that's going to happen. And I think it happened again tonight. There were stretches where, the offense just didn't feel, obviously they didn't lose this game because of what they did on offense. They scored, how many points did they score? 124 points. But, they need another guy. They need another guy to be a reliable initiator of offense. Is Brogdon that guy? I don't know. I'm almost starting to think I kind of want someone better. I don't know that someone better is going to be out there for a cost that I want to pay. I've kind of settled on the side of the fence if I don't want DeJounte Murray. Again, you could talk me, you could talk to me about that another time. But good start, Mythic. And another one, PTSD from Mythic Monty, from lack of defensive boards in the final minute. Just awful. Just it's the most awful way to lose when you don't get a rebound. And like, look, you can't, like, you got to praise them for their effort the previous 7-8 minutes before that possession, because they really did bring it, I thought, on the defensive end. It wasn't perfect, but they brought the energy they needed. And like, I'm not saying they dogged it on that possession, but it was just frustrating. It's just really frustrating. Jesse M, a fake comeback Fisher and Hornacek would have been proud of. I got to tell you, at halftime of this game, I felt like everybody was already making the jokes about the fake comeback. I thought they were going to get back in the game. I thought it was going to be real. And then the third quarter opened, and they allow the Mavs to score at the top of the third. Julius does his thing. And then there was a moment where Brunson turned the ball over. Again, did not love the game from Brunson. And then the Mavs came back, and someone hit a three, I think, to make it 113-93. Yeah, the fourth quarter lead of 113-93. And I literally wrote my notebook here, game over. I was like, I guess I'm wrong. And then we got the comeback, of course. So, what do you know? Thanks, Jesse. Haitian Ferg, what's going on, Haitian? Always appreciate your comments and contributions here. Poor effort in the first half cost them the game. Yes. JB forced the issue in the first quarter. Completely agree. I don't think he's this type of guy, but it sure did feel like I'm going to come back and show them what they missed out on. When Randall should have gotten more possessions, the game changed when they went through Randall. I loved the second half adjustment. Without Tibbs, we lose by 30. It might be a little kind. Tibbs made adjustments. Tibbs made adjustments for sure. Maybe a little bit too late. And also, in fairness to Randall, they kind of went through him in the offense in the first half. It didn't always go as well. So I don't want to pretend like that was, that was like, if they had gone to it earlier, maybe it would have been better. Am I putting this loss on the coach? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You like, come out and try. Come out and try. That's not on your coach. That's on you. Thank you, Haitian. Alex, they showed decent fight. Yes. Maybe OG's price went down after this game, at least. Tibbs, I love you, but waited too long late before starting to double Kyrie. Yeah, I said it, and I agree with that. As far as OG's price, like, I think Knicks fans everywhere have to accept the fact that, like, OG is not a metronome. He will have games where, like, here's the thing. He's not Josh Hart. And it's a bad comp because Josh Hart didn't play particularly well tonight. But, like, part of the reason Josh Hart gets paid $18 million a year is because the effort is there every night. Even early in this season, when we were like, man, Josh Hart doesn't really fully brought it, the effort was, like, still there, and OG, that's not, it's not an OG thing. That's very rare. Like, very rare that guys do that or bring that, like, every night or pretty much every night. So, and he's going to have off shooting nights because everybody has off shooting nights. But, like, I mean, the dude's still going to get paid because if the Knicks don't do it, somebody else will. I promise you that. Thanks, Alex. All right. Hush Zoo. Need more plays ran for OG. 6'8", sitting in the corner 90% of the game is ridiculous. Need to trade for the bench player ASAP. Tyus Jones, please. Yeah, I mean, the tough thing with running plays for OG is he's not really a creator. So, okay, what plays do you run for him? You try to run plays for him, getting him downhill. And I'm gonna say something which, again, if the right person clips this and disseminates it, gonna make me look awfully silly. Because of how much I've killed him over the years and the send-off that I had for him. But, like, that was an underrated RJ skill. Now, in fairness, I said repeatedly it's the only truly elite skill he has, constant ability to get downhill, and there's a reason why the Knicks ran that pistol action all the time, is because they knew if they ran that action, it would get, at the very least, a shot at the basket. OG's not really that sort of guy. I think the plays you're running for him are more along the lines of, like, how can he cut into open space? A lot of the stuff that we saw in Portland, that's fair. That's fair. So, But to say that it's ridiculous to put one of the best corner three-point shooters in the league for 90% of the game, I mean, that's just efficient offense. So I think we got a couple more coming from Hush. I'm becoming less and less a fan of Hart's contract. Hart's he's another guy. If you catch him on a night like this, you're going to be like, why are we paying him $18 million a year? And here's another one. If he's not doing his intangibles, what is he bringing? Intangibles is the first thing on the list. But the reality of the NBA, the way it's played, now, like there aren't many guys who bring that. And here's the other part about Hart. More often than not, there's going to be nights where you look at him and you're like, oh, okay, he's probably not even paid enough. Or at the very least, he's earning every penny. Like tonight wasn't a good night for him. I don't think one bad game is a moment to start questioning contracts, especially when you look up and Josh Hart has one of the best plus minuses in the league. Like that's not a coincidence. We're through almost 40 games. If a team is destroying other teams when you're on the floor, probably means you're doing something right. Thanks, Hush. Travis Edward. Sadly, I feel like Brunson and Randall were in their heads about playing in Dallas, and it cost them in the beginning. It's as good a theory as any. I don't know. I personally can't separate out the low energy from the other stuff. It's a really great observation. I think Brunson more than Randall because I felt like Brunson was forcing more looks early on, whereas Randall was just like had some moments that were not very good, and then to his credit, he adjusted. That's the thing about. Let me praise Randall on this. His in-game adjustments this year, with the exception of the Philly game, which was an atrocity, his in-game adjustments since the opening few weeks, I think, have been really, really strong. And I thought tonight was an example of that. Not saying he was perfect in the second half. He wasn't. But by and large, it was a much better game as he went along. But, yeah, it's a very good observation, Travis, truly. I wish I had something else to add, but I think you nailed it. Kevin Danishevsky, what's going on, Kev? Thank you for the contribution. Nothing I'm really long-term worried about, especially with Mitch probably coming back. We'll say that Tibbs needs to be a bit more flexible with the rotations. Before you yell at me, he's been excellent. You preach to the choir tonight, man. Play Grimes more on a night like tonight, but it's funny that it gets us back to few people that I'm lucky enough to be able to text with on a regular basis. We're just texting about this a few minutes ago. It's the same reason that Quickly didn't play. It's the exact same reason. He doesn't want to play three guards at the same time because he feels like it compromises the defense too much and it compromises like their base, like what they're built on. And you look at it and you're like, all right, well, tonight's the night to adjust. Tonight's the night to get out of your regular thing because your regular thing wasn't really working tonight. The guys that allow you to do your regular thing were not really bringing it tonight. And he would never say this in front of a microphone. My guess is that his response would be like, yeah, but that's not how habits are built. What does Tibbs always talk about? Always talks about habits. He doesn't say that shit by accident because he thinks that the more you do something and the more repetition, is it always going to go perfect? No, it's not always going to go perfect. But the more you build those habits, when it comes down to nut cutting time in April, May, and June, God willing, one day before I die, the fact that you've been consistent about how you approach the game and how you approach games, it's a better way to put it, throughout the season is going to pay dividends. And, we'll see. Thanks, Kev. But I'm not going to argue with that tonight at all. Bernard Richardson. Tibbs gets his complaints from us, more so unwarranted than not, but this team will never quit, and I'm damn proud where the culture with the team is. Should have won this game, but we move forward. So I love this because tonight I think all of these takes are reasonable. You want to criticize Tibbs tonight? I think it's reasonable. You want to praise Tibbs tonight because he's instilled something in the team. You never give up. You never let go of the rope. Like, I watched the first half of the Boston-Milwaukee game tonight to my own detriment. You want to talk about a team letting go of the rope? The Celtics, and that's probably unfair because they had a second night of back-to-back. But, no, the Knicks, they fight. They always fight. They never give up. They never give in. And I ultimately I do think that is evidence of their culture, and I do think that Thibodeau is a big part of instilling that culture. All that said, is it can you be proud of the team tonight for that aspect? Sure. Can you be proud of reasonable minds could differ on that. Where I don't think reasonable minds could differ is, and I've said something to this effect recently, and I'll say it again because it bears repeating. The fact that a night like this, where they came out with something less than 10 out of 10 effort, has us all fucking completely shocked and be like, how dare you come out with something less than maximum effort in a game where you're playing against an undermanned opponent, and you could probably be forgiven for looking across the court and being like, yeah, we got this. Because that was the norm for most of 20 years. And yet in the last 4 years, it's such an aberration that we sit here and we're stunned by it. We're stunned by it. So to me, yes, that is as good a compliment as you could give the culture and how far it has come, albeit a frustrating night tonight. Thanks, Bernard. GD Nation, my man. He's back for more. Leon, get on the phone. Get Kyrie for Brunson. Hashtag Scotty.
Stupidest comment of the year.
Oh, stupidest comment of the year. I think is he trying to one-up himself? Is that it?
It's a new year.
It is a new year, so we need to have a new stupidest comment. No. Look, Kyrie is the most frustrating guy in the league to watch. And it is because I loathe the positions that he apparently takes. I'm choose my words carefully here. Or at the very least, his actions would lead one to infer that he feels certain types of ways. And that is really unfortunate and upsetting, and I don't like it on a personal level. And then if you're a basketball fan, you watch him and you watch what he does, and it's unreal. And he is absolutely a guy that, I don't need to sit here and be like, you win a championship with Kyrie Irving as your second best player, because somebody already did. And I wouldn't be I don't think this Mavs team has all the pieces, but he's good enough to do it again. And on a more serious note, I'm not obviously your comment is joking, but the other thing that Kyrie reminded us of tonight is Kyrie could play a little defense. He's capable of it. He doesn't often, which is a reason to criticize him. But he can play some defense, man. And Brunson, no matter how hard he ever tries, he's just always going to be a guy that gets taken advantage of. So it's unfortunate. Will Oliver, crunch time rebounding in Dallas is not our thing. No, it is not. And you know what? I think the Knicks actually I'm going to say right now, I think the Knicks out rebounded the Mavs on the night.
They did.
45-38. Yeah. So they needed to make it 45-35. Jessica Elsner. Hey, Jess. How are you? I hope you're bringing some calm, peace, and love to the postgame. He had a rough night. Randall makes dumb mistakes sometimes, but this season, his hands are up, and he never gives up. Not perfect, but he's ours. Hashtag ride with Randall. Also, IQ article today was a tearjerker. Yes. Amen to that. Not a perfect night from Randall. Still think he's an all-star. Me and Andrew Claudio did our East All-Star picks earlier today. We both agreed that Randall should be an all-star. I don't think it's an automatic. I think the Knicks need to finish strong, which is another reason I'm very annoyed by this loss tonight, is because this Eastern Conference it's not going anywhere. Like the Cavs won again today. In France against Brooklyn, they're a half game ahead of us. Like the Knicks are in 6th now. Pacers are a half game up. Oh, Andrew's reminding me to remind everybody to sign up for Patreon if you want to hear the rest of our picks. Go to patreon.com and search for Knicks Film School. There you go. But like the Knicks are a half game in front of Miami and Orlando. And I don't know if those two teams play tomorrow, but if both those two teams play tomorrow and win, then they'll be tied with the Knicks. The Knicks will be tied for 8th, essentially. So every game matters if you want to try to get at the very least in that 4-5 slot, to say nothing of maybe making a run at the 3 seed. I've never really felt that the 3 seed was a realistic thing. I know people have been kind of getting excited about it in the last few days. Philly coming off a loss. I mean, shit, if we won this game tonight, we'd be a game back at 3. Like, that would have been cool. But they didn't, because they fucked around and they found out. Brian Valderrama, Warriors fire sale, anyone you would be interested in? Let me be very clear about that. My response, anytime anybody asks me about a potential like team to trade with or players to trade with, my response is always going to be like assuming fair cost, like assuming what the other team would need to get back to actually make a trade. And given that very specific caveat, I think my answer is no. I mean, needless to say, the Warriors are never trading Steph Curry. But beyond him, I don't like. They got their Andrew Wiggins, a better. I know we didn't show it tonight, but a much better version of Andrew Wiggins, I would argue, in OG Anunoby. So I don't see how Wiggins would make sense on the contract that he's on. I mean, I love Looney. I mean, you want to talk about, my God, if they were ever going to trade Looney, I got to think the line would be around the block for Looney because he's so good. And he's also instrumental to their culture. I got to think, like, this team is going through a lot of changes right now. I don't think they're going to trade Looney. I really don't. And then you got the 2 kids. You got Kuminga and Moody. I mean, you have Grimes on this team, and I just got done saying, why is Quentin Grimes only playing 15 minutes tonight? Like, Moody can't even get off the bench in Golden State. Like, you already have your version of that. And Kuminga, like, he's clearly not happy playing the minutes he's playing there. So what, he's going to be happy coming here and playing 12 minutes a game? I don't see it. I don't see a trade. Travis Edward, Mitch would have eaten tonight. It would have been a nice Mitch game. And it's also a good reminder. Look, he deserves all of the flowers that he has gotten. There are nights where you're going to look at Isaiah Hartenstein and he's not going to be what he has been for much of this year. And I completely agree. Tonight is a game Mitch probably changes for a variety of reasons. I would have been interested to see him trying to switch out a couple of times. I know he hasn't always fared well with that, but, and just on the boards, protecting the rim. I think it's a good comment, Travis. Anthony Sixto. What's going on, Anthony? Some takeaways that can carry over. OG's nice drive, initiating contact to create space and score. I hope we see a lot more of that from him. And, like, he's got the body for it, that's for sure. And he could finish. He's got the finishing for it. It's, I think, just about getting into the set, so to speak, or getting starting getting downhill, right? And then maybe the Knicks could be creative in some ways that you get him going towards the basket, and that's on them. Outside of the bad pass, Precious looking more comfortable. Dante's a guy I want to see in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, Precious, what he was doing, again, there were so many plays like that. So many plays where you're like, what are you doing? And Precious literally throwing it over his head to the Mavs was one of the strangest, if not the strangest play we've seen all year. Other than that, he had some nice minutes. Dante in the playoffs. I mean, if he's a 50% shooter from downtown, if that carries over, I mean, what are we even talking about here? You know, and the longer this goes, it is insane what he's doing, and it is insane that it's not being talked about more. Like I'm gonna. You guys know I love the Hoop Collective with Brian Windhorst. It's probably my favorite. Yeah, it's my favorite NBA podcast. I love listening to them. I could listen to Brian talk about basketball all day long. He's knowledgeable about the game. He's a great reporter. All of the things. They were talking about the Knicks like a week ago on the pod, and he mentioned he was talking about that, like, who are the Knicks' best shooters? Like, he was doing it off the cuff, and he was talking about, like, oh, well, you know, it was after the OG trade. And he was like, other than Brunson, OG might be their best shooter now. Like, who else do they have? And he didn't even mention DiVincenzo. But it's just a sign that DiVincenzo, the season he's having from three, has not even remotely entered the national discourse. Like, people are not talking about it. The dude has been a 50% fucking shooter from three for well over 2 months now. It's crazy what he's doing. So, good job by him. Sam Garcia's dad, what's going on, man? This might be the first game I've watched this season where I believe they were not ready and gifted the game to the Mavs. Disappointing. They were not ready. They didn't come out ready to play. I mean, there are other games. I'm trying to think what are some recent games. Andrew has a much better memory than me. What are some games with they didn't come out ready to play in the Utah game? What other ones jump to mind?
Jump to mind, I don't have anything offhand. That's like the thing. Like the Utah game is the one.
They fucked around in the Detroit game, but they came out with fine energy against Detroit.
They were up by 15 in the 17 in the first quarter in Detroit. And then it was like the weird night where the second unit didn't like keep the lead going, you know? Yeah, I don't have a lot of low energy games for the Knicks, but I think
the Miami game,
I thought
were they low energy or were they just bad to start that game?
They were just bad. Like Miami was doing the leak outs, and it was just like everything the Knicks wanted to do, Spo was ready for, and just bad third quarter.
So we are kind of glossing over a couple of games that I think came on the second nights of back-to-backs, like the New Orleans game. That was low energy. I want to say the second Clipper game, coming off of the emotional win against Phoenix, second night of a back-to-back, you could kind of put that in that category. But those there were excuses. Like this was the first one that was not on a back-to-back, that was not against a team. Well, no, it was against a team that was undermanned. So, yeah, I don't know.
Again, I feel it's similar to the Utah game.
It's very similar to the Utah game.
You're looking at a team across from you. You're like, oh, we're better than them. You know, look at their record. We could beat them. And in this case, it was a specific talent discrepancy.
Absolutely.
I'm very bothered by the Grant Williams minute. It's my only frustration tonight. I did all that research before the game that every time he's on the floor, the Mavs are ass. Like, pair anybody on cleaning the glass. Grant Williams plus someone else, and it's a negative.
He hasn't shot well.
And hasn't defended well, hasn't done anything well for like 16 games now. And watching him like earn an offensive foul call against Jalen Brunson and like bully Hartenstein and get the call and get like forced a jump ball, I was just like, what is happening? They were supposed to get back in the game when he came in, and it was just that's my frustration tonight.
That's fair. Sam Garcia's dad with another one. Thank you for the generosity tonight, Ray. All I heard for a year plus was the Knicks needed 2-for-1 consolidation trade. The front office did that, and now all I hear is we need another player for bench minutes. Explain why this isn't a contradiction. It's the best question I think we've gotten. The reason you needed a 2-for-1 consolidation trade is you had too many guys on the roster that needed to play too many minutes for how good they were. They were anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes in terms of like how many minutes guys ideally probably should / want to be playing versus how many minutes they were actually playing. The consolidation trade eliminated that problem by what I'm doing I'm talking with my hands because I'm Italian and that's why there's a thumbs down on the screen right now. It eliminated that problem, but how did it eliminate that problem? It sent out 55 minutes of basketball and Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, and actually maybe a little bit more than 55, but let's go with 55. And then it brought back, let's say, 35 minutes in OG Anunoby. So you got the 20 minutes. Now, what are you filling that 20 minutes with? Well, a few guys that wanted more time are getting more time. DiVincenzo's getting a little bit more time. He's the big one. But at the same time, like, it doesn't change the guard issue, which is what we talked about before. Tibbs doesn't want to play 3 guards at the same time. And that's exacerbated because you now have this situation where Deuce is running backup units, and this doesn't fall on Deuce. This is not a Deuce problem necessarily, although it kind of came to light tonight on a few possessions he didn't initiate the offense properly. But the fact that they lost 2 initiators and they did not pick up an initiator in this trade. Let me say this to you, and here's where it comes. This is what it comes down to. If OG Anunoby, and this is not a critique of OG Anunoby, it's just a reality. If OG Anunoby was an initiator in addition to being the most versatile defender in the league, arguably, and a knockdown 3-point shooter, if he was also an initiator, well, then he'd be an all-star, for one, and you weren't getting him for this deal. You'd be getting him for these 2 players plus, several unprotected first-round draft picks. There's a reason you got him for what you got him for. But if he was an initiator, you wouldn't have this problem. Because then you'd have a 30 initiator, and you could get by in an NBA game over 48 minutes with 3 initiators. Right now, they only have 2. So that's why you need another piece to support the offense. Because right now, you have 2 dudes who are supporting the offense, who are initiating the offense for 48 minutes. That is not tenable. And but then here's the issue. If you trade for someone like a Brogdon, or even like a Tyus Jones, and you give them the Deuce minutes, well, how many minutes did Deuce play tonight? I think he played 9. 9. Yeah, Andrew has it. They played 9 minutes tonight. So then you're going right back into the same hole that you came out of, which this is a very long-winded way of saying, I wonder if this isn't at least part of why the Knicks have been mentioned in a DeJounte Murray possible trade. Because in that trade, you would send out Grimes, and so you'd essentially be going down to you might be going down to an 8-man rotation if you do that trade. Because Murray would be picking up the Deuce minutes, I presume, and he'd also be picking up the Grimes minutes. Does that make them a better team? I don't really know. If Murray was willing to come off the bench, it might, but that's part of my issue with that trade. Let's say you go get a guy like Tyus Jones. Like, Tyus Jones is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Do you think he's going to be thrilled about coming here and on some nights playing 12 minutes? They had a bigger problem before the trade in terms of not having a guy that did what OG did. And so they solved the bigger problem. I would argue the biggest problem, other than the fact that they don't have, a top 5 player. But they opened up another problem. That other problem is very solvable, but it doesn't mean that when you solve that other problem, it's not going to have a trickle-down effect that will create more issues, which you are bringing to light. It's why it's such a fantastic question and a great comment, because, this building out this roster will have to continue to be, to some extent, a walking the tightrope, because there is no blatantly obvious solution. Because guess what? If you get a guy who's comfortable playing only 12 minutes a night and he solves all your initiation problems, well, you're probably going to want to play that guy more than 12 minutes a night. And he's going to want to play more than 12 minutes a night. So this might be a very long-winded way of saying, for as much as everybody wants to get another guy, if the right guy was available, they maybe could use another consolidation trade. But I don't know if I see that guy out there. I don't think Murray's the guy. I wrote about Marcus Smart today. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. I don't necessarily know if he's the guy. But we'll see. Listen, I don't think this is the final version of the roster. I don't think the Knicks think this is the final version of the roster. And most importantly, I don't think that internally they are viewing this season as like, this is our year. For as aggressive as they were in getting OG, and for as much as you're going to hear about them being involved in trade talks for backup big and a backup point guard from now until the trade deadline, I don't think anybody in that front office thinks that this is like the be-all, end-all next year. So that's when it is. So, patience, right? Patience is a virtue. Doesn't mean it can't be frustrating. Tingus Pingus. What's going on, Tingus Pingus? Hart needs to get out of the rotation. Horrible shooting numbers, and now that OG is here, his defense rebounding isn't needed. Give Grimes his minutes. Well, they're not going to do that because they just signed him to a $72 million contract. I understand how Josh Hart can be a very frustrating player at times when he's not bringing the Josh Hartness of it all to the game. And then you compound that with his inability to hit an open three. It looks bad. It looks really bad. And it looks pretty silly that you just paid the guy what you paid him over the summer. But I mean, just speaking reality, one, they should not do that. You generally poor process to make drastic rotation decisions after a poor game. And also they're just not going to because he makes a lot of money. Alex, the refs were really rough. I'm glad somebody brought it up. I probably should have mentioned it at the top. It was just a really poorly officiated game all over the place. Does Tibbs need his Steve Kerr or Darko moment where he uses his post game to call out the officiating, especially with Brunson? I think he had his moment a few weeks ago. I haven't seen any tweets about Tibbs' post game presser. My guess is the fact that there were none means he didn't go crazy on the refs. Just checking to make sure that's accurate. Yeah. Anyway, I kind of think he already had his moment. Haitian Ferg, what's going on? Bernard Richardson said it better than me. Law of averages applies with Tibbs. Not too mad at OG. Teachable loss. New run starts now. Get Malcolm. I'm cool with Malcolm. I'm cool with him. Didn't play great last night. They were the other night. I think he's a good basketball player. I think he would help this team. I think it would make them better. I agree. It would create a minutes crunch after we just got over the minutes crunch. Might be a price worth paying. And new run starts now. I hope so. I when they got to 5 in a row, I allowed myself to dream a little bit, especially after it got announced that Luka was going to be out. I'm like, oh man, maybe this is this season's run. And that's kind of what made tonight so disappointing, because it was right there for them between this and then Memphis, and then you come home and then you're home for a month, basically. Like, it was right there for them to really build that momentum for a sustained winning streak. You lost tonight. Go. You better go into Memphis and not screw around, because you screw around in Memphis, and then you got to come home and play an Orlando team. That, man, you want to talk about a team that does not fuck around on any night, and is playing a whole lot like the Knicks, the We Here Knicks team. Is that Magic team? So all of a sudden, we could be going from a 5-game winning streak to a 3-game losing streak if they're not careful. Go win on Saturday. Kevin Matz, what's going on, Kevin? Thank you for the very generous contribution tonight. Appreciate it. Losing to Timmy, Kyrie, and a Luka and Lively-less Mavs team upsets me. It upsets me too. I'm irrationally mad and leave me alone. I agree with your pick and roll point, but this Deuce looking capable of running the second unit open you to the Atlanta or Detroit bogeys. Is he running the second unit? Like, I worry that either one of those guys would come here and they would not be maximized. Man, I mean, Atlanta's Bogdanovich is the guy who, like, man. But again, obviously you're giving up Grimes in that trade. So, but again, he comes here and he's a guard. Like, he defends like a guard. So the minutes are coming from where? If you move Deuce out of the rotation and you trade Grimes, all right, how are you generating offense? Because that's the thing. If you get Bogey and you trade, even if you trade Grimes, that's still not enough minutes for him. So you got to give him Deuce's minutes too. So even if you make that trade, you're going down to 8-man rotation because Bogey's freaking awesome. And you better, if you get that guy, you better play him 25, 30 minutes a night. So then how does that work? Who's running the backup unit? DiVincenzo? That's something I'm actually curious about. What would it look like if for 12 minutes a game, DiVincenzo run backup units, but you're still lacking that initiator. I don't know. I'm talking around in circles. I know, and I apologize for doing that, but I really do feel like they need someone that is more of an initiator of offense, someone that could run a pick and roll consistently and get them into good, like, ideally create advantages. At the very least, run a pick and roll. Jessica with another one. These games are hard, but after a 5-game winning streak, we needed to see what doesn't work. That's how teams learn from failure. They don't give up. Let's go Knicks. I love your comments, Jessica. Thank you. I appreciate them always, but I especially appreciate them on nights where we have a tough loss. Yeah, you win or you learn. Hopefully they learn tonight. It revealed some warts, something that nobody's really talked about explicitly, but I think it's fair to wonder. OG is not the be-all end-all when it comes to stopping really like the 5 to 10 best guards in the league, offensive guards. Struggled against Maxey, clearly struggled to stay with Kyrie. So that, when you face one of those guys, does it take a little bit of the luster off what had been a very good defense? Absolutely. Mavs bothered Brunson tonight. Teams are going to do that more and more. Can you counter it? Is it about making the offense go through Randall more, as Haitian Ferg said earlier? Are there other possible solutions? So lots of things to think about. Thank you, Jessica. Kevin Danishevsky, really think they should just play Sims with the backups? I don't really have anything to say. Sure. Travis Edward with another one. Thank you for the generosity, Travis. Appreciate you tonight, man. Bringing a lot of good stuff. For 5 straight games, OG was the second coming of Thanos. 1 loss and the sky is falling for some fans. Welcome. I feel like I should get you a fucking name tag because you must be new here. I I kid. We let up 8 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter. In some ways, it all boils down to that tonight. Next, yeah, like again, the final. I didn't even read the final numbers. The final numbers on this game, in a game again, they lost by 4, and at one point they were down by 1 late. Knicks 14 of 42 from 3, Mavs 17 of 41. So that's 9 points right there. And I talked about the fast break points. It's another one. Very annoying. No, but like, take it in stride. Lunas Emirat, what's going on? Lunas, hey Macri, hope you and the family are doing well as the rest of the KFS, as well as the rest of KFS. On nights like tonight, I cope by thanking God we're not the Nets with their shit show. I don't know. Should we end this one by going through the top 5 teams that can make Knicks fans feel better thinking about when they wake up tomorrow morning? Andrew?
Let's do it. That's fun.
Let's go. I mean, oh, wow. They cut the lead to 22.
Staring at the Lakers.
Yeah. Man. Let's do 6 teams and we'll do a quick snake draft.
Okay. You first.
Me first?
Yeah. I have a pick if you'd rather me be first then.
You go first.
Okay. Portland.
Portland?
They just lost by 100 points in 48 hours.
That's not what you want. I'll take the Lakers. About to go to 19 and 20 and be in a tie with Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Who's not trying to win games this year.
I will go with the Wizards of Washington.
You're going with these terrible teams.
I go into teams that don't have a young guy to be like. I may Scoot may change that, but the reason I'm not saying Detroit is because Cade at least has showed something, and as Benji said, they're a respectable 1-35 in their last 36 games.
Picking these toilet teams are not in the spirit of this exercise. I'll go with Brooklyn because they pissed off their fans and their own players, and they have lost. I mean, they're 3-7 in the last 10. They're falling apart.
They pissed off who? Their fan? I'll go the Atlanta Hawks.
Damn it! You stole my last pick.
Only one
the
other
Warriors.
team I see. Yeah, the Warriors. And the reason I stayed away from them is like after a dynasty, I will never complain again. If the Knicks win 4 titles in 7 years, I would never complain ever again.
Do you know how miserable their fans are this season?
Oh, they are. I'm saying this is my draft. This is my draft picks. I would never complain. The Knicks win 2 in 3 years. I would never complain. The Knicks win 1, John. I would probably not complain for like 5 years.
Here's the reality. This draft could go through more than half the league, and it puts in perspective. It's been a very good year for the Knicks. The trade is still a good trade. They're still doing a lot of the right things. Come out Saturday and win the game.
Yes, don't screw around like you said. 2 more came in from Kevin Metz, by the way.
Kevin Metz. What did I say, Metz?
Metz. Yeah.
Was it written as Metz or was it written as Metz?
It was written as Metz.
So I just misread it.
Yes. It's okay.
It's a bad job.
Small print.
I mean, it's not that small. In that case, I think Bogdanovich starts and the Deuce Dante combo runs the bench. I know that's blasphemous, but I think it's the best version of what's possible. I mean, Bogdanovich as a starter would be great, but honestly, like, I don't know. How can you look at what DiVincenzo's doing and say that removing him from the starting 5 is part of the solution? I don't mean that to be a dick or facetious or anything, but like, he's hitting 50% of his threes. He gives you nice defense off the ball. Bogdanovich is not going to be a better defender than him, like, in any respect. I don't see how that makes them better. So I would pass on that, and I really do think they need the initiator.
I maintain it. Brogdon just is the perfect fit.
Perfect, it's a strong word, but
if he's taking the Grimes role, then you can still play Deuce, and your defense doesn't fall off a cliff. And Deuce gives you the point of attack defense
hold
that you're
on.
losing with Grimes.
So hold on, I'm not trading Grimes for Brogdon.
You're not putting that in the trade because I assumed that would happen.
Oh, I don't think they will trade Grimes for Brogdon.
Okay,
I
do, but
I'd be surprised and I'd be pretty mad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's me.
If that's not part of the conversation, then there's a minutes crunch again, like you said.
Guess what? There's going to be a minutes crunch. Nick Petroselli, if you could add anyone from the 2012 team to the current Knicks, who would you add besides Melo? I'm torn between Chandler and Felton.
Jeremy Lin. Backup point
2012-13 team.
He said 2012. I assume that's a team that their season ended in 2012. By the way, Nick also says, I missed Breen and Clyde. We're so lucky. I agree. Nick, clarify in the comments. Do you mean the 54 win season, or do you mean the Jeremy Lin season, the Linsanity year?
I'm pretty sure he means the 12-13 team.
I just want him to clarify in the comments.
I don't know that they need Chandler with Hardenstein playing as well as he is.
He means 12-13. So yeah,
and
Tyson Chandler
and Mitch potentially coming back.
Well, so are we talking like right now? Because then backup center Tyson Chandler sounds great.
No, just like add that version of the player onto this team.
Add that version of backup center Tyson Chandler would be awesome. Pablo Prigioni as a backup point guard would be pretty good too.
Raymond Felton as a backup point guard would be pretty good. Or Jason Kidd.
Used to be in a starter. We have Josh Hart. The guy that's going to shoot 30% from three.
Kidd shot it well that year, didn't he?
No, he fell off a cliff very early in the season. I remember there was a stretch where Jason Kidd was awful, was 1 for 25, and then he hit a bunch of threes against the Heat during that 27-game winning streak. And it was oh, Jason Kidd is back. And then the Heat ended up winning that game anyway.
JR was on that team.
JR was on that team.
What a great question.
We hit the 2. Well, 3. If you want to, you're looking at point guards. So
I'm thinking
Prigioni or Felton.
I'm thinking Kidd. I'm not going Prigioni. I love Prigioni. I'm not going Prigioni. I'm thinking Kidd. I'm thinking Felton. I'm thinking JR. I don't think Chandler's crazy. And the one guy that hasn't been mentioned yet, which is the first guy that came in my mind, is Steve Novak.
Ooh, okay. More shooting.
I don't know how he's getting minutes because this team is now suddenly very big at the 3 and the 4, and I don't want him out there guarding shooting guard. I don't really want him guarding anybody in the league now, which is part of the issue. Who could guard in the league now? Could Jason Kidd guard the way the league is right now? That version of Kidd?
No.
I don't know that he can.
He literally retired when the season ended.
JR. You could argue you could argue JR was the second most important player on that team, even ahead of Chandler. And he was incredible that
year. The thought of Amari didn't even cross our minds.
Should it have?
Not just he said add anybody. If we're putting Amari,
I thought about Amari.
Okay. If we're adding bench Amari that came back for the playoffs, then why not?
What's he going to play?
Kenyon Martin.
You want Amari to be your backup 5 on this team?
Yeah, why not? He'd be better than Precious Achiuwa.
On offense, yes.
John. Amari Stoudemire is better than Precious Achiuwa.
Of course he is on offense.
Right.
So are they running plays through Amari Stoudemire and backup units?
Yes, and they would be successful because it's Amari Stoudemire against backups.
I remember Amari that year.
I know he was coming off the knee injury the year before, and then he got in a fight with a fire extinguisher, and then lost.
He did.
And then the
Lost.
following year, it was like on and off when he's on the court, and they were better when he was off the court.
I'll take JR.
J.R. Smith. I'll go one of the point guards. I have more stock in Prigioni, but I guess maybe Deuce is kind of filling that role at this point. Sam Garcia's dad.
That's good. Sam Garcia's dad. I'm taking Novocaine from the 2012 team. Yeah, it's the first name that popped into my mind. I just don't know. So let's say he's your backup 4 and he's playing, 15 minutes a game, and you're putting him on the least threatening offensive player for that time. You kind of have to insulate his, because I mean, it was a stretch for him to defend then. Man, that'd be so cool to have that level of shooting.
Probably Prigioni had a 58 effective field goal percentage that year.
Prigioni was awesome, man.
Yeah, that's my answer.
I'm not taking Prigioni over J.R. Smith.
Tibbs would literally throw J.R. Smith out a window.
Tibbs will always compromise for great offense.
I think. I guess my thought is like they need an initiator. Maybe your thought is like JR is gonna run the second unit, which he could just do that. But J.R. Smith was like their de facto. It was like they're quickly like last year. They're Josh Hart, where it's like You're technically coming off the bench, right? I don't think they need that. Their starting 5 is good. I need 13 good Prigioni minutes, so that way the offense doesn't completely stall.
I mean, it's JR.
I'm being very specific. Like if we're just going by talent, yeah, JR, give me Amari.
It's not about the talent.
Chandler as my backup 5.
I think JR would fit. I think JR would fit wonderfully on this team.
Whose minutes is he taking?
Probably Grimes.
Talk about defense getting worse. If you're gonna say like Amari wasn't as good as Precious Achiuwa on defense,
no, that's true.
I have the same argument for Grimes. Last one.
Travis Edward Elford is our backup point guard. I'll hang up and listen.
Currently,
no, we're not there yet.
We're
not there yet.
On that note,
yeah. Thanks everybody for checking out the post game tonight on what was a decidedly not fun evening. Don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, all that sort of stuff. You listen to the podcast, help us out on there as well. We'll be back with more funny games very soon with is there a pregame pod this weekend?
Yep.
Pregame pod coming up for the Grizzlies game, and then obviously me postgame on Saturday night. So I'll see you all then. Have a good one and take care.